Greetings, YouTube. A friend of mine sent me a link today that it was just too wonderful, I couldn't pass it up. The article is called Things People Say That Offend All Republicans, though I don't think it's going to offend all Republicans, but it is going to offend a whole lot of them. Bush lied us into the Iraq War. I don't think anyone anymore thinks that the Bush administration and Darth Vader himself, Dick Cheney, didn't lie us into the Iraq conflict. It was all BS from top to bottom, and it cost us thousands of lives and Iraqis hundreds of thousands of lives. It also sapped huge amounts of resources from the United States into the pocket of no-bid contractors, which, is just crap icing on the feces cake. Santa is not white. Well, technically St. Nicholas is not white. Santa is a mythical creature, and Santa can be anything you want Santa to be. I see Santa in the same way I view Buddha as a symbol of enlightenment and compassion. So Santa is as real as any other spiritual being in my book, but he can be anything you want to be. And the reality, though, is that St. Nicholas was not a white dude. We need more regulations. Remember the Great Recession? Well, 78% of Americans think we actually need more rules for Wall Street, and I am one of them. Capitalism cannot currently be replaced. So we have to rein it in. We have to put controls on it because unrestrained capitalism got us in this mess, and it's going to continue pushing us further and further into a mess unless we do something about it. And we control it through regulations. I look upon capitalism and like nuclear materials. When under tight control, very useful. When not under tight control, lethal. As an example of how we don't have proper regulations and proper support of the American people, in 2014, Wall Street executives got $28.5 billion in bonuses. All the Americans working full-time minimum wage jobs made $14 billion. And remember, 85% of people working full-time minimum wage jobs are adults, not teenagers. We need to bring the minimum wage up, and we need to put some caps on how much you can conceivably earn so that money gets funneled into the middle class and the poor where it belongs, because the middle class and the poor create the wealth. People at the top are parasites. CNN isn't liberal. Now, he states that MSNBC is liberal. I don't watch MSNBC. He states that CBS, CNN, and most other outlets are simply reporting the news. If Rand Paul comes off like a weirdo, maybe that's on Rand Paul. You got that right, because Rand Paul is a weirdo. I would argue that none of these organizations are liberal. That all of them are conservative. Because the people that control them are conservative. Not to mention the Democratic Party is conservative, but people tend to ignore that as well. I get my news from The Daily Show, which is a humorous quip, but I don't. And maybe this guy does, the author of this article, but I don't get my news from there. I scour the net constantly looking for data and information. The Daily Show, however, often has very pithy comments about pertinent pieces of political news and social commentary, and I will miss Jon Stewart. People are not using abortions as birth control. Preach it, brother. I've actually had this argument with conservatives. They think that women are having pre-planned abortions as some sort of feminist rite of passage, or simply because taking a pill every day is just inconvenient. That is not the case. No, it isn't. People don't want them. They have them because they don't feel that they don't have any other options in their life, and it's their choice. It's their right. It's their body. And while I think that 24-week cutoff point is probably too early, I think that when we start to become humans is a later point than that. I'll stick with 24 weeks. But up to 24 weeks, a woman should be able to have an abortion on demand. Reagan was imperfect. But this really bothers Republicans. But Iran-Contra, but huge deficits, but not mentioning AIDS for so long. So just maybe cool it on the naming everything after him. It wasn't just that he was imperfect. We're all imperfect. It's that the Reagan administration was inherently evil. Ronald Reagan's administration trained terrorists on U.S. soil, sent them to Central America to rape and murder. The entire Reagan administration should have been handed to The Hague as soon as they were done with their offices, including Bush Sr. Remember, he used to be in charge of the CIA. He's got blood up to his elbows. Enhanced interrogation techniques is a fancy phrase meaning torture. Yes, it is. Waterboarding was a torture technique used during the Second World War, and the United States and their allies hung officers that were involved in waterboarding U.S. soldiers. We deemed it as torture and as a crime against humanity, and yet suddenly when it's convenient for us, we will waterboard people dozens and dozens and dozens. In some cases, it was one guy who was waterboarded 165 times. One guy had waterboarded so many times that on command, he would just walk to the table and stand there and wait. We had conditioned a human being to be waterboarded. To think that the United States ever held any moral high ground is an absurdity. You voted for Sarah Palin. Yeah, you did. It may have been McCain, the first name in that, but right after McCain was Palin. And Republicans voted for Sarah Palin, who is a caricature, but sadly real, which is all the more tragic. The racist Dixiecrats are now called Republicans. Yes, other Democrats used to be the racist ones. Totally, that's on us. We're very sorry and embarrassed, but the powerful voting bloc didn't just disappear. They're now called Southern Republicans. Remember, the Johnson administration, when they backed civil rights, all those racist Democrats left the party and joined the Republicans. The deficit is different than the debt, and it's down since Obama took office. The debt is a total amount of including from past administrations. The deficit is the difference between what we take in and what we spend, and it's way down. When Obama said we've seen our deficits cut by 2/3, he was correct, and it makes Republicans nuts. Yes, Democrats are far better at governmentship than are Republicans. I don't care what Bill Clinton did with those ladies. You got that right. I don't care about any president's sex life. There was only one woman on the entire planet I was concerned with Bill Clinton having sex with, and that was Chelsea Clinton. Other than that, as long as he had consent, I don't care if every woman on the planet lined up for their turn at Bill Clinton. It didn't matter. He was an awesome president. Yes, he did some things that I don't agree with, but he did far more things that I did agree with. I thought he was a great president, and his sex life was nobody's business. It's nobody's business about Bush's or Cheney's or Reagan's or anybody else's sex life. Get their sex lives out of politics. It's got nothing to do with their ability to govern. Under God was not in the pledge for a very long time. Correct. The pledge was written in 1892, and In God We Trust was tossed in there in 1945 as a reaction to the communist Red Scare. We don't need it. Not to mention, we don't need the Pledge of Allegiance, period. At least we don't need it in schools. We don't need to be indoctrinating our children into saying the Pledge of Allegiance. Because if you believe in it, you don't need to say it. If you don't believe it, it's an empty gesture. It violates the very concept of freedom. Lower taxes don't generate more tax revenue. This one is hard to say with a straight face. You are correct. Of course they don't. In fact, this theory is called the Laffer curve, L-A-F-F-E-R, named after the economist who popularized it, and while it is laughable, it is what George Bush, the good one, called voodoo economics. It was been disproved time and time again because, of course, lowering taxes just benefit the people who have had their taxes lowered on and hurt the rest of us. Lincoln wasn't really a Republican. They get mad about this one because they know it's true. What we mean when we say Republican and what they meant back then are totally different things. Lincoln's Republican Party, and in brackets, Republican Classic, believed in a strong federal government. They created the income tax, and they thought that the government should protect minorities from the tyrannies of the majority. Correct. The Republican Party of the 1860s is not the Republicans of the modern era. Republicans of the modern era are neo-fascist terrorists. Actually, it's Dr. Maddow. I'm pleased they're referring to Rachel Maddow here. Yeah, she has a PhD in politics from Oxford. She's a Rhodes Scholar. I think she knows what she's talking about. Yeah, Republicans don't like people with an education. Those folks tend to live in a world of facts, and Republicans don't. They all use executive orders. Correct. Yes, Obama is a dictator for using executive orders. It's an unconstitutional right. Guess what? They all issued them. In fact, George W. Bush issued almost 100 more than Obama has. Literally every single president has issued them, except for William Henry Harrison, who died 32 days after taking office. So impeach them all, starting with George Washington. Right, executive orders, all presidents use them, and Obama has issued fewer of them than Bush. Also, Obama has far fewer days of vacation time than have the Republicans. Obamacare is not socialism. Guys, I know you're being hyperbolic and all, but the Affordable Care Act is a market-based health care solution that has pretty much invented by the super conservative Heritage Foundation and implemented by Comrade Mitt Romney. I'm all for socialized medicine, sort of like we have socialized police and fire departments. That Obamacare isn't that. It sure isn't. It falls far short of what we need, which is a universal single-payer system. We need what France has. Take the French system, drop it in the United States, and we would be doing fine. You guys are terrible at governing. It's just a hunch I have. Oh wait, it's empirical. Using data from the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development Quality of Life Study, 24/7 Wall Street compiled a list of the 10 states with the worst quality of life. Guess how many were totally controlled by Republicans? All of them. Sorry, did I offend you? So, again, this is a humorous article, but it is also full of facts. Republicans hate facts. Back when Al Franken was just a writer, an actor and a writer, I should say, before he got into politics, he wrote a number of books which I found very entertaining. And a great line, my favorite line he ever wrote in it was, "To make the Republicans look bad, all you have to do is tell the truth."